Hey guys, Cody the Coder here. Uh, I'm going to show you how to program in Ruby. Making sure that Ruby is installed by calling the interactive Ruby. What does IRB stand for? It's like a Ruby shell. So, oh man, I don't know if it's accurate to call it a shell. But yeah, you can see you can run Ruby code here from the terminal. Uh, Ruby comes installed with all Macs, so IRB Ruby. Interactive Ruby shell. Oh, so they call it a shell, but it's actually an REPL. Let's find out what an REPL is. Read eval print loop. Got it. Let's see here. So, I want the syntax highlighting from Sublime. Sublime is a sophisticated text editor for code, markup, and prose. So let's go ahead and download that. So I previously made a Cody the Coder account where I had, I don't know, I think I had like one follower. And then I had a lot of like really clickbaity titles like make $80,000 a year, work from home, become a developer. And I forgot the password to that one, so I'm going to pause the recording. Command Shift 2. Okay, so I've got Sublime text editor. So yeah, now we're going to write some Ruby code. Ruby is the language that looks the best and is probably the easiest to start with. And I used to show JavaScript for like a basic introduction to coding type thing, and then you create web pages with JavaScript, and then you open up the Google Chrome console to read the print statements of JavaScript. But I kind of ran into a problem with that because I was using like 1999 era JavaScript instead of modern ES6 syntax. So when I wound up doing that during my own coding interviews, I don't think it made a very good impression. So yeah, I'm just going to program a bunch of games and record myself doing it. So yeah, I mean, my initial series was supposed to show someone who had no experience with coding whatsoever. Um, I was going at kind of a slow pace, but most people who would want to learn coding nowadays, they've got bachelor's degrees. They're mid-career professionals who have succeeded in some other field. So I guess it makes sense for me to move a little bit faster with my coding instruction. So if you don't know what a terminal is, you just go up here to Spotlight, type in terminal, and ls. So it shows all of the folders that I have in my home folder on my Mac. It's pretty similar actually on Windows and Linux. So it's a command line interface that you can change folders with cd, change directory, and then you can run a Ruby program, or you can run any program with Ruby and then the name of the folder, or the name of the Ruby.rb file. Blackjack time. Yeah, so I'm going to make a blackjack game that is from the command line only, so there won't be a UI. We could create a UI later using. It's actually a difficult question because I guess we don't need a database for that. So we could just create the Blackjack functionality as like a Sinatra server, like a lightweight Ruby server that would respond to HTTP requests from a JavaScript front end. But then, you could just put all of the logic for the Blackjack game in the JavaScript front end. There's no real reason to have it being on a server other than as like an academic exercise. But this is an academic exercise, but I'm just going to make a command line version of Blackjack. So let's see here. So the first thing we want to do is to be able to get a user input. So I'm going to look up gets.chomp, which I think is a pretty good name. I don't think, no matter what level you're at, like there's no reason to feel like you have to memorize a bunch of stuff, or that like coding, you're not allowed to look at documentation like that, because even really advanced programmers, they do this too. Like I've seen them admit, like, I never know how to do a Ruby on Rails migration I have to look it up every single time. So maybe I should get a Red Bull. I'm feeling kind of sleepy. Let's see. But yeah, so here, all I had to Google was gets.chomp, and then this shows you how to get the user input. We could just copy paste this. There you go. So yeah, that works. But we're not going to use that right now, though. So we might as well just comment that out. If you don't know, the command to comment multiple lines out in Ruby is command ? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create like the deck. And then the deck goes so 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. There you go. Maybe we should make it like 8 decks, so that, like a casino does, so it's more random. But how to get random element from array in Ruby. myArray rand myArray.length. Okay. Yeah, I guess we don't have to take the element out of the array. Like technically, I guess we could, but it should be pretty random anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and make it like a 2 deck. Make it a 2 deck. So I think at casinos they use like 8 decks. So we probably want to define the function to get random card. Actually, I should probably wrap. The thing is, like, whenever you're doing any kind of coding in Ruby, you have to pass parameters like this. And it gets annoying to pass all of the parameters. So it's best to put them all in a class that you can instantiate, and then you can just rely on the instance variables inside any single one of the methods. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it destroys whatever credibility I might have that I had to Google how to declare a class. But like when I was doing an interview at a big 4 company, I panicked in the moment, and I wasn't able to declare a class in JavaScript. So I just panicked, and you only want to think about things that are helping you to solve the problem. Anything else you should feel free to be able to look up. So, so yeah. So here's a constructor method. Actually, this should be the deck should be an instance variable. And then here we get, but yeah, so by declaring the class and then making the deck and then, the entire game state containing it within a class, then we're going to be able to interact just with instance variables and we won't have to pass any parameters at all, which is pretty good for simplifying things. So here's a class method, get random card, and then it should be deck. Oh yeah, we just use this. Deck rand deck.length. And then it'll just automatically return that. Ruby automatically returns the last returned value, so it'll just automatically return that. So let's test that to make sure it works. Yeah, it looks like a weird color to me, but I guess that's just the way it looks in a new version of Sublime. So I think we're in good shape. Push up on terminal to get the last command. Didn't do anything. Okay, it didn't do anything because, so I was Googling constructor to see if I named the constructor something incorrectly. The constructor is, of course, the function that gets run when your class gets instantiated, but in this case, nothing happened because I didn't instantiate the class. There you go. What? Is something wrong with it? Okay, there you go. I mean, I guess there's just a lot of 10s in the deck. Yeah. Okay, so now we can get the random card. So, def starting hand. Probably just an array is fine for the starting hand. The data type. So we just return get random card here stored in an array. Yeah, it should be good. So player hand equals starting hand and dealer hand equals starting hand. May want to change starting hand to get starting hand. People can be really persnickety about the way you name variables. I was told at one place I worked, don't name your variables something starting with get. But I'm Cody the Coder. I'm the one calling the shots in this casino. So so now we should probably print those out to make sure. Player hand. Great. Yeah, so you can see that it printed out both of the hands. What do we do now? I guess get hand value. I think it's just dot sum. Let's see if dot sum works. Nope, dot sum doesn't work. It's an enumerable. Calculates the sum without the use of the block. So it looks like I used it incorrectly. Yeah, so it's actually supposed to work the way that I used it. Undefined method.sum. Maybe it's in like a library that I have to import. Oh yeah, it's a Rails function. It's not a Ruby function. So I do have to so that'll iterate over everything in the hand with a block, and then it'll keep track of a running sum. So get hand value. Here I think we should use an argument. Cool, so this is a lambda or a block, and what this does is it starts with a value of 0, and then it iterates over the hand and performs the block on each element within the hand. So inject is one you don't see that often. I think the most common one is probably map. But then there's also like reduce and flatten, and then a lot of them, they don't just perform the block on each element of the array or hash. They also do like a comparison. So I mean, they're really useful. And see, so here is an example of array and then array.map string.uppercase, and then it puts all of the characters in the array into an uppercase. Collect. Map and collect are exactly the same thing. No. If you read open source projects, you'll find that the most common one is map. So I guess collect and map do the exact same thing. Map with index, map shorthand, arrange. Ruby enumerable methods. The enumerable method under the hood. Select is another good one. Yeah, so here's just going. So each does something similar. But yeah. Yeah, so will the hand value. Let's go ahead and test that. Looks like it didn't work the way I expected it to work. Okay, yeah, I mean I'll just do it like the dumb way. I'd say always choose the simplest solution to any of your problems. And then I didn't return the sum. So yeah, so now it's adding it correctly. Yeah, I would say always choose the simplest solution that's going to help you accomplish what it is that you're trying to do, and then maybe like tune up the code later. Because you don't want to think about anything that isn't related to solving the problem. I mean, you want to small chunk everything. And part of me wonders if like it might be good to create an object called a hand and then add this get hand value as a method on that hand. Um, I think that would be like good object-oriented design. So, mm, so now I'm asking myself, like, should I pass an argument to the hand of the initial cards that the hand has? Or should I just make hand, I guess I could just make hand a class within Blackjack, and then it should have access to the parent classes. Should have access to the parent classes instance variables. But now I'm also asking myself, is it really worth it just to move the get hand value class into a method on the hand? And I don't think it's worth it. I think it goes beyond the scope of this tutorial. So let's see here. Chewing nicotine gum. Nicotine has been proven to increase intelligence. And finger dexterity, both of which are very good for a coder. So, dealer hand. No man, I'm gonna pound a Red Bull. I'm gonna pause this. Okay, back at it. Yeah, feeling good after that Red Bull. So, the next thing to do is so I'm going to create a while loop that will run the game and take user inputs until the game is over. But first I started calling it game over equals false. And then, so I would have to put this bang or exclamation point here to run this when game over isn't true. But I think the logic behind that is kind of difficult to make out. So I'm trying to think of a name for a variable that is going to, that you can phrase it in the positive. Still playing, because you don't want to have too many like for your conditionals. You want to make sure that they're straightforward and that they're in the true. You don't want to have to do like unless, which is the opposite of if, because it's just harder to intuitively figure out. So I'm going to do still playing, and I'm going to rely on that. So while still playing, and then we don't have to use the bang. So it's just easier to understand. So this is called dry. Don't repeat yourself. So here we can use this. We can use that to print the game state in just one place, and then we don't need the test for the random card anymore. So now we're going to go back down here and use this gets.chomp. So what are the options in Blackjack? It's like hit, hit, stand, and then that's it. And then if the dealer is below 14, then the dealer hits below 14. And there's like some more complicated logic in there with like split and the dealer hits on like a soft 14 but not on a hard 14 or something like that. Or does dealer hit below 17? You know, this is a coding tutorial. This isn't a blackjack tutorial. I'm not a blackjack expert. So I'm just going to implement those three things right now. So user input equals gets.chomp. Hit, stand, hit or stand. We should create like a hit function and then def hit. So the hit function should be adding a card to the player hand. We could make that more agnostic and then also apply the hit function to the dealer hand. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So we pass the instance variable in as a parameter. Hit. Yeah. So if user input equals hit, then hit player hand. Else if user input equals stand, and then this is just like a dummy function for now, stand, that we'll implement later, and then else puts sorry, I didn't understand that. Of course, we could, we could put like some stuff in to parse the user input, like to make it caps insensitive, trim white space from around the user input, and we might add that in later. But for now, I think we just want to focus on the game itself. So run game. Calculate game state. If player hand is greater than 21, puts sorry, you bust. And then I can make that a one-line if. Calculate game state. I don't really like that variable name. Oh well. If dealer hand is less than, we decide on 17. Yeah, when does Dumbo come out? That's what I want to know. Yeah, so 17. That autocomplete from Sublime, that's really a great feature. Actually, this should be a while because the dealer might hit multiple times. Yeah, so then we run calculate game state at the end of run game. Then we also need stand. So if there's a stand, you don't really have to do anything. Like you don't have to do anything else. Then calculate game state. And then at the end of calculate game state, so then this will end the game. Yeah, it's considered like bad style to put a function that only has like one line, especially just like a variable assignment. Like I think that's something that you could usually avoid. But I think that the function end game is just a lot more clear than setting the still playing to be false. So I think it's worth doing. And then I should probably exit out of this function. Or maybe I should put the dealer hitting in its own function and then like compare the hands. Dealer decisions. Well, dealer hand is less than 17, puts dealer hits. Hit dealer hand, puts dealer hand. If dealer hand is greater than that, dealer busts. You win. Return to endgame. So we have to indent everything inside of the while to show that it belongs to the while. You see I also have the if indented there. Calculate game state. Sorry, you bust. You lose. I think the dealer wins on a tie, right? If oh yeah, and for all of these sums, mm, hmm. Yeah, I named the variables in a bad way because the player hand is going to be an array. It's not going to be the sum of the hand. So you have to I'd have to replace all of these references to the player hand or the dealer hand with the get hand value function, which is kind of annoying. Like, I don't think it's going to look very good. You know, it's a lot of extra characters, but I don't see a way to get around that right now. Yeah, and of course, like I thought about doing earlier, I could have put a function on. I could have created a new hand class and then put this sum function as a method of the hand class, but we'll get to that later. So, calculate game state. So the player loses if they bust. If the dealer busts, we've already covered that. Could probably put that down here in if the dealer busts. And I think the dealer wins on a tie. It's a tie, so I guess you get your money back without winning anything. But there's no money incorporated into this program yet. So if player hand equals or I've never seen the advantage of using cases instead of like a bunch of else ifs, because I guess if it's like a really long one, it makes more sense to use a case. But mostly, if you just use the case syntax, it just adds more lines and it does the exact same thing as an else if would. So that's how I prefer to do it, a switch statement. Let's see, when to use a case statement, or what's it called, a switch statement. Let's see, so this is in Java, but it should be language agnostic. So switch feels lighter in many cases. Okay, well, actually it's not agnostic because the syntax is different, so you have to use a lot more braces and parentheses, and Ruby doesn't have braces or parentheses. So when to use a switch statement in Ruby. Oh, it's more flexible and more powerful. Oh, so I guess Ruby doesn't have to have break statements, so it's actually better. But the basic form of a case statement in Ruby, a simple value comparison is used. In Ruby, the case equality operator is used. So that's the difference between 2 equals signs and 3 equals signs. So 3 equals signs it includes also like the type of variable. So 2 equals signs will probably make a string of 1 be equivalent to the integer 1. But we still haven't answered our question of when to use a case and when to use else ifs. So this is actually most similar to what we have because it doesn't have a single argument. It would have two arguments, the dealer hand and the player hand. And, oh, case assignment. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so I'm just going to use ifs. Let's see. So else if get hand value player hand is greater than the dealer hand. I was tempted to use an else there to cover the case of the dealer being bigger, or the dealer having a bigger hand, but I don't know, something might go wrong, so something went wrong. So here's a catch-all. Okay, so calculate game state. So end the if. So now I'm thinking about when to end the game. So when the user input doesn't equal stand, I mean, the user has to declare it a stand eventually. So we might not even need any of these still playing variables or the end game variables. What else did I refer to that? Yeah, so I'm just going to make it well user. Yeah, so I think that'll actually work better. So then, well, the user hasn't decided to stand. We're just going to keep taking user input, and then the dealer is going to play after the player has his hand. And what the dealer does isn't really dependent on what the player does. So I think that should work. Okay, cool. Let's see what happens. Hit or stand. Hit. Hit. Okay, the player should be allowed to auto lose before, and then it should automatically break the loop. So because otherwise, I mean, the case that I'm thinking about is where the player could just keep hitting over and over again until they have a hand with a value of like 50, and we want to like terminate the game before then, right? Like we don't want the player to be able to get their hand up to 50 without the game being over. It would just break the game. So get hand value of player hand. And then we want to exit out of the program entirely. If you don't know, I hit Control C to stop the program. Uh oh, it looks like it didn't work. Maybe I didn't save it. There you go. You bust. Dealer wins. Okay, good. So now let's try to play, test some more of the possible paths through the game. Paths. Hit or stand. Hit. Stand. Dealer busted. Take that, dealer. Ooh, house wins, sorry. So the print statements are messed up because the dealer busted and I won. But dealer... We should probably do a return statement here. So what happened was... This if statement ran. We might actually put this as like an if. So this one ran, this line ran, line 58, and then line 65 also ran because even though the dealer busted, his hand was still bigger than my hand. So the solution to that is that we just add this onto the else if chain so that only one of them can run, and then that should cover that eventuality. Yeah, and then I guess we can put this one also onto the same if chain. If chain, I wonder what it's actually called. I used to study language, but I never studied linguistics. So my explanation of like grammar and stuff, like someone told me once, like, you sound like an English teacher, not a linguist. Oh, it's such an amateurish way. And I really feel like I have the same approach to coding because, you know, I've programmed a good amount, but I'm not really a computer scientist. Get hand value. It's just you have to invent a lot of your own terminology for stuff. So get hand value, player hand. Yeah, oh, that should be fine. Okay, well. So I hit and then I busted, but it didn't tell me what card I got that I busted with, which I think is a bad user experience. So maybe we would want to print the game state. In a couple more places. So where did the player hit? I'll just print the game state. But then we have to move this because otherwise it's going to be asking hit or stand at a time where the player can't do anything. And then this dries it up because we're relying on the same print game state function that we already had. Uh-oh, it ran it. It ran it twice without anything having been done. Wonder why. Oh, that's why. We had it twice within the while loop. Hit. Stand. Excellent. Now I'm going to test me busting. Bust. Dealer wins. Hopefully the dealer will bust. No. It's a really bad hand. Yeah, I mean, I have to hit, but... Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is a Ruby command line blackjack. I'm not sure what else I would want to add to this. I guess like going forward, you could add like to do, add betting system. What else could you do? To do, add logic for ace. For ace being 11 and does it count as 1 or 2? I guess 1. To do, add logic for splitting. Yeah, so I mean, if you wanted to take this to the next level, that is definitely what you could do. This is my first YouTube video. I plan to do a whole lot of these because I definitely want to do some hacker rank assignments or the hacker rank challenges because those are a really good way to practice the kind of cracking the coding interview type stuff. But I feel like this is a better way to learn coding because like if you're working on a website like JS Fiddle or something, you're not keeping a local file on your computer that you can, look back at and see how it works. And, working with an IDE or, Sublime isn't really an IDE, but like working with Sublime is always better than just working with like code that doesn't have syntax highlighting. And then also running it on your local computer is a better way to learn how to, just manage your code and how to run code locally than working on one of these websites that have development environments. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to link to the code in the description on a paste bin, which actually has an option for Ruby code. And your homework assignment is to add the betting system, the logic for the ace being 11 or 1, and the splitting to this app, and then being able to, yeah, I don't know, I mean, just build on it. I guess I could push it to GitHub instead of on Pastebin, but I don't know. I mean, who knows if my audience knows how to use GitHub? And it kind of seems like overkill for code that is, or for a Ruby quote unquote application that's only one file. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna put it in Pastebin. Cool. Tune in next time to learn. Probably do poker actually.